Okay, so the formal title in the book is Demand, Supply, and Prices. I always just call it the pricing system. And like I said, we have not taken any notes on this yet, so today's the first day we're actually taking notes. So we're starting with the pricing system. And so there's a couple of things that we use to determine prices. The first thing is that we have to talk about, and I'm going to give you the formal definition of equilibrium. So the price is stable and quantity supplied equals quantity demand. Okay? Equilibrium, remember, is where our supply and demand curves meet. So that makes sense that at that specific price, your quantity supply and your quantity demand are going to be the same. Like we said for our warm-up, this is where we want to be. This tells us what the price should be. If we are not at equilibrium, we are going to have some problems that we're going to talk about in just a minute, okay? But this is where we want to be, because here we can say that the market clears, okay? The market clears, meaning that we don't have anybody out there, we don't have any of our rulers or sellers out there willing to supply more. We don't have anybody out there, any of our consumers willing to buy more, and so we have this clearing, okay? So we want to be in equilibrium. So since I did your supply and I did your ruler graph on the board yesterday, I did not have like a picture of it. I guess I could have taken a picture of it. Okay, so I found this one where it was specifically talking about the price of ice cream cones. Okay, so in this case, whenever we're drawing a generic supply and demand curve, it's basically going to look like a great big X. In this case, our equilibrium price is $2 and our equilibrium quantity is 7. So what we're saying here is that for this instance, the price of ice cream, the price of ice cream cones should be $2, and at $2 we will sell 7. Okay? And this is important because this is going to tell us how much the price is going to be, and it tells the producer how much they will actually sell. Okay? Now, if we have hit equilibrium, they won't have any left over to sell. They won't have anybody knocking on their door saying, hey, I want some ice cream. Okay? Do you have any more ice cream? So this is going to be the perfect balance. Now, if you did not already yesterday, you should have labeled this point with a third color. Remember, you had one color for demand, one color for supply, and then your third color should have been to label equilibrium. What was our equilibrium yesterday? What were the coordinates? 6.5. Was 650, and what was the quantity? 7 1/4. Okay. So here's the thing: is that was what our price should have been yesterday, according to the numbers you gave me. So 650 should have been the price. Anybody remember how much I told you it would cost to produce rulers yesterday? $7. So the funny part is that where our sellers actually make money at $6.50? No, they would actually lose money. But that was based off from what you guys told me. Same thing, okay? It's going to be different, okay, because it's based off from the individual numbers that you get. All right? So that's what equilibrium is. Now, like I said, is that there's one point on here that's equilibrium. That's where you want to be. But you aren't able to be there all of the time. Okay, so sometimes you have something called a surplus. Okay, so this is going to be where the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demand. So if I go into an actual store, how can I tell that they have a surplus? There's a whole bunch of products left on the shelf, right? There's a whole bunch of products left on the shelf. And so as a result, you know, because remember when we're at equilibrium, we have the quantity supplied and quantity demand are equal. So you're not going to have anything left on the shelf, but you're not going to have anybody wanting more. When you have a surplus, you have all these products left on the shelf, okay, and they're not able to get rid of them, okay? So if we're going back to that ice cream thing, and I'm going to go back to this to reference it since I don't have a picture of your guys' graph from yesterday. Okay? If we're going back to our ice cream from the last slide, where do you suppose a surplus is going to occur? Is it going to occur to the left of equilibrium in this quadrant here, above equilibrium in this quadrant here, to the right of equilibrium in this quadrant here, or below equilibrium in that quadrant there. So you got 4 options. 1, 2, 3, 4. So where do you think a surplus is going to be when we have the amount supplied is greater than the amount demanded? Guesses?
Up and to the right.
So above equilibrium? Right of equilibrium.
It can be both.
Hmm?
Above.
Above? Okay, Noah says above. How many agree? Woo! All right.
Yes.
Hey, he at least put it out there. He had an idea. Other suggestions? What do you think? Below equilibrium? How many say agree with Kayla? Below equilibrium.
I'm putting my hands down.
No?
We're
No,
not
no.
certain.
Hmm?
We're not certain.
Think about it this way, okay? Think about it this way. We are looking at prices, okay? So we're looking at individual prices. What happens to the amount that is offered for sale versus the amount that is going to be bought. So as I go below $2, okay? Look at you don't even have to look at the quantities yet, okay? But if you go below $2, what happens below $2? Is the more going to be demanded or more going to be supplied below $2? Because look at it. If I just pick out one particular price along here, just draw a straight horizontal line, doesn't even matter what the price is, you can go across and you can see at that price the demand is going to be higher than the supply. Is that a surplus? Demand higher than supply, is that surplus? No, that's not a surplus. What about if we go prices above equilibrium? If we pick a price anywhere up here, we draw a straight horizontal line, okay? What happens to the quantity at that particular price?
It goes up.
What happens, are we going to have the quantity supply or the quantity demand going to be higher at any price above equilibrium?
Quantity supply would be greater.
Quantity supply is greater. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a 4th color, something you did not use yesterday, okay? 4th color, and I want you to shade the region above equilibrium, and I want you to label it as a surplus. Okay, so just like I did here with this ice cream graph, okay, that kind of triangle region above equilibrium, I want you to label as a surplus. So go all the way in between the 2 lines. It's basically going to be a weird shaped triangle. And make sure you label it as a surplus. Anything above this price of equilibrium, in my case up here it's $2, in your graph it's going to be above $6.50, okay? You're going to have a surplus, okay? You're going to have products that are left over that no one is buying.
I mean, some people are buying.
Okay, yeah, not enough people are buying. Let me rephrase that. Thank you, Miguel. Okay, so this is always going to be above equilibrium. Surpluses are always going to be above equilibrium, okay, because above equilibrium you're going to have the quantity supplied is going to be greater than the quantity demand. Okay, so add that to your notes, above equilibrium. Now, if we have this happen, and we have this surplus, and we said that we know in a real life company that we have a surplus because we have all these products left on the shelf, what do you suppose is going to happen then? What are they going to have to do? They have to lower the price, because basically the surplus is telling them you set the price way too high. So they have to lower the price. And what's the magic place they're trying to reach? Equilibrium. They're trying to reach equilibrium. If they don't drop the price far enough, okay, what happens? What if they started way up at the top and maybe they started with the price as, in my case, of $4 for an ice cream cone, and they have way more supply than they have of demand, so they dropped the price to $3. Was that enough?
No.
No. So what are they going to have to do?
Drop it down to 2.
Drop it down again. This is why when you go to stores, and you see this all the time with clothing stores, okay? And you will see, like, especially right now, they're weeding it out now, but they have a lot of clothing stores will have clearance racks. And right now, what kinds of clothes are on those clearance racks? Summer clothes, okay? And you will find that they will have, like, okay, for example, shirts, okay? And you go through those clearance racks, they'll have shirts on those clearance racks, and they will be the ugliest shirts you've ever seen in your life. Or they'll be the weirdest sizes. It's like, okay, you know, who is going to fit into this extra, extra small, petite size shirt? Well, apparently they had too many and they had the price too high. So they had to drop down the price to be able to attract more people, right? This is what happens is that they ordered way too many of a particular style, particular size, and so as a result, the price was too high, and now you're going through the clearance and you're going through the process of dropping it down till you reach equilibrium. Does that make sense? Yes? Now, we can also determine from this, if we're talking about individual prices, so like if for example, I added this $4 price, okay, and I'm saying that at this $4 price, the supply was 13 ice cream cones, okay? The demand was 1 ice cream cone. So how much of a surplus did I have at $4? There's 13 ice cream cones that were supplied. There's only 1 that was bought at $4. How much of a surplus, how many ice cream cones do I have melting? 12, right? 13 minus 1 is 12. Okay? So you can determine, I forgot, I need this first. Okay, what about if I have at $2.50? So that's only 50 cents more than my equilibrium. Now I'm looking at, okay, where does my supply and demand intersect my $2.50 line? So if, for example, at $2.50, there were 9 ice cream cones that were bought, or sold, sorry, and there was 5 that were bought. So 9 ice cream cones that were available for sale, 5 that were actually bought. How many do I have left melting? 4. 9 minus 5 will give you 4. The reason I tell you this is that by looking at our graph, we can actually determine the greatest surplus and the smallest surplus. The greatest surplus is where the demand and supply are the furthest apart, and it's above equilibrium. So notice this is going to be in my greatest surplus. This is going to be the largest section where I have a whole bunch of products left over. The further away from equilibrium you get, the more the surplus. Cool. You with us?
Yeah.
Okay, in order to determine exactly how much of a surplus there is, you have to subtract the supply from the demand. So you have to subtract 13 minus 1 to give you 12 ice cream cones that are sitting there melting. Now, in the past, I have not had people write that part down, and then inevitably when I ask them questions about it, they're like, what? How did I do that again? So that's why I'm having you write it down. So the greatest surplus is where the supply and demand are separated the most, okay? Now, the smallest surplus is going to be where they're closest together. So the smallest surplus is going to be where supply and demand are closest together, and it's above equilibrium. Now, if we want to get technical, we could say that the smallest surplus is at $2.01, right? Because that's above equilibrium. That's above our equilibrium price. Okay? But you can't really calculate how much of a surplus there is. So we'll just go with the closest price that was graphed to equilibrium. Okay? So in this case, our smallest surplus would be $2.50. Okay? So it's the closest points that are above equilibrium, and you can tell, just like I said, this is an upside down triangle here, so you can tell that we are getting closer and closer together, so our surplus is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, okay? Again, to be able to figure out how much of a surplus we have, again, we are going to be looking at subtracting supply from demand to determine the amount of surplus. So